Hello and welcome to Wake and Jake, our special monthly tradition, the Foolish Bailey episode with myself, BBD, and of course, Bailey. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, Talking Jacob?
I'm good, man. I'm excited. When you and I spitball ideas, I'm always interested to see where you're at because you cover the whole spectrum. You could land on any idea, and I'm happy that your junior Caminero just got called up.
That's right. My guy.
You were early on that Shohei Ohtani trade rumors. But you said you wanted to do playoff breakout stars, which you got me because I currently have one working theory that I'm excited to bring to the table, and it's been out there here in Talkin' Baseball. But I'm interested to see where you go with it because, A, we're wrestling with the smallest of sample sizes. Like, in a way, this is against predictive anything, right? Like, this is anti that. And a 7-game sample, and in theory, anyone can be special. So I'm excited to see what kind of route you're taking on it. Is it just guys you like? Is it guys that are going to appear on the scene? Or are you looking at certain numbers or data points that you think that's why player A is going to become a star this October?
Yeah, it truly is going to be a beautiful blend of just stats and then gut feeling, so I'm excited to get into it.
Let's do it. And I have a couple guys that I drew up. Actually, the first one that I jumped to is actually on the same team. The first team you listed. You listed that you've got people Orioles, Cubs, Astros, Twins, Phillies. So you were like, hey, go surf around some of the other teams. So I did. Yep. But I'm interested to see who you picked on the Orioles because lately I have fully been drinking the Orioles Kool-Aid. Every stat I look at is more impressive than the last. The one I got hooked on today, their record against teams over 500 is just, it's everywhere, man. Their road, home, record against 500. There's 2 teams in the American League that are above 500. It's the Rays at 46-40 as we record this. But the Orioles have a fantastic record. Like it's like 53-38 or something along those lines.
Wow.
How dominant they've been in seemingly every facet, yet we've been standing here all season like Orioles pitching though. Do they don't have a Justin Verlander, do they? I don't care. I'm out the window with it. I'm treating them with the same a similar respect I'm treating the Braves. The Braves are a super team. But I'm all in on the Orioles. So I want to know on that roster, who spoke to you as the breakout star of the postseason?
Yeah, so I'm going against type here. I'm not choosing a guy who's like 20 and has long flowing blonde curly hair, which is sort of their MO lately. I'm gonna go with Grayson Rodriguez, and I mean you alluded to it yourself. If there's one knock on the Orioles all year that has been, parroted as a talking point. They don't have that frontline starter. They don't have that guy, that you want to, that's like, oh, that's who we hand the ball to for game one, open and shut case. And lately, Grayson Rodriguez has been awesome for them. So, hopefully, I think probably most people listening to this are familiar with his prospect history. He was at times considered the top pitching prospect in baseball. Made his debut this year rather than last year because of injury last year, and pitched the first 2 months of the season in the big leagues and was bad. He was really bad. Yeah. So what I'm following here with a lot of these guys is sort of like a nice narrative. And the nice narrative for him is he got sent down to AAA at the end of May, came back just after the All-Star break, and has been absolutely lighting it up. And there's data that backs up these changes. His fastball velo is up a tick. The movement on his changeup is up. He doesn't throw his cutter really anymore, which was really a bad pitch for him at the major league level earlier in the year. His arm slot's a little bit lower. But the end result for it is so his first sort of stint with the team this year, his ERA was almost 8. Yeah. His FIP was over 6. He was averaging 4.5 innings pitched per start. In the second half, since being called back up from AAA, the Tides, I believe, 2.59 ERA, 2.91 FIP, 6 innings pitched per start. So I'm really excited about Grayson Rodriguez as, maybe not your prototypical, frontline starter, considering he's essentially a rookie, but a guy who could make a big impact for this Orioles team at what is perceived to be a weakness.
Finally, a Norfolk Tides shout out on this show. We've been waiting for that. Okay, so this is where I was intrigued because I think if you're heavy in the baseball world, Grayson Rodriguez. If you track top prospect lists, if you've been tracking the up and coming Orioles, you're familiar with him. If you're, we all three of us speak to Joe, construction worker who checks in on baseball every October, and they're probably more familiar with Kyle Gibson than Grayson Rodriguez. So okay, because he has been awesome since July 17th. That was his first start from the getting recalled, like you said. 71 innings, a 2.66 ERA, and for me, the eye-opening moment, because it's kind of one of the beautiful things at baseball that we just really don't have a clue. Like,
yeah,
you get the Bryce Harper prospect that you're like, you know what? He'll be a certain level of good. Is that Hall of Fame? Is that a couple All-Stars? Even someone like, Will Myers was a massive prospect and had a nice career, but, and he was regarded as high as some people, but baseball taps some people out. I don't know how to phrase that. Grayson Rodriguez is obviously still young enough that when he got called up, it's just one of those eye-opening, like, wow, dude, like, you throw high 90s, you think you know how to pitch, but at the big league level, you're getting worked right now. And I like that you mentioned kind of getting away from his cutter. For me, what makes him different, because you see the fastball velo, and he had a good breaking ball too. I forget if it was a slider or curve, but his changeup, a right-handed changeup from a young pitcher like that, and it just, I always get skeptical of myself when feel like I'm actually scouting someone, but it felt like his arm slot is the same on every pitch. It's 3+ pitches, and that's the formula if you want to be an elite starting pitcher. And I'm interested to see where he's at this postseason because, if I'm Kyle Bradish, I'm like, people, respect me. If my name was Jack Flaherty, you guys would be screaming from the rafters about the season I'm having. But I don't know if it's an Orioles thing. I don't know if it's being named Kyle Bradish or what it is. He's a start away with his ERA ending up in the 2s that, I don't know. I guess that's going to be something interesting to watch because how are the Orioles going to line up their postseason rotation? Is it Bradish, Grayrod, Gibby, Dean Cran? I don't know.
I think that's probably how I would do it personally.
Do you give Grayrod the ball over someone like Kyle Gibb? That becomes a fun veteran kid argument. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe it depends on what happens in game 1 if we're putting Bradish in first.
Kyle Bradish being the one for the best team in the AL. I did not see that happening this year. Do you should I be worried about Baltimore's bullpen more?
I kind of like their guys there. I mean, obviously they've got Cano. I still think there's still some hope that Bautista comes back, like, and he doing well in his bullpens or something. I don't know. And then Danny C.
Yeah.
Danny C. Coulomb he's nice with it. He's real nice with it. But yeah. Oh, also I do want to throw in with Grayson Rodriguez if we're like listing potential downsides here. He's thrown over 150 innings this year as a professional. That's by far the most. His previous high is about 100. So that's and you're throwing October innings on top of that. So we'll have to see. Look, is he gonna have the dog in him, or is it gonna be a little kitty cat?
Turns into foolish calling out Grayrod. Yeah, and I I guess for me, I know Jack Flaherty just moved to the bullpen, and I always love a guy going to the pen and ticking up and something like that. I wonder if they felt okay with other guys in their rotation, if he could be a bullpen option, or if that's just, that comes with a different set of risks than innings pitched, is a guy doing a different routine and trying to dial it up, which for a top prospect, you probably just let him start and see what you got.
Yeah.
Okay, I like that. My guy on the Orioles, this is my pure feel, and you'll see my theme go on. I was locked in on this player. If I wanted to dig up the hashtag receipts, I could. I'm a massive Eddie Rosario guy. When I always thought Eddie Rosario, especially on the Bomba squad, that holds the MLB record for most home runs in a season, juice balls, but that's still hilarious in my head. Eddie Rosario hit third in that lineup, I think, every day. He was the lefty that split it up, and he's not an on-base guy. Like, he's just not. He was basically like clockwork. I feel like it was around 280, 320, something like that, with an OPS right around 8. And I think what the numbers, and Jimmy's run into this attacking OPS a little bit because the other numbers do matter with OPS. Like, I think batting average needs to be brought into the equation because that says a lot about who you are as a hitter. Like, maybe we need a batting average OPS like subtraction metric that way it can show you the difference between a Gallo and a Rosario or something like that. Because in a playoff game, give me Eddie Rosario all day. I think Eddie Rosario can hit. I know he's not an on-base guy, but I think in the playoffs, when you've got the best pitchers in the world who have to attack the zone, like it's not a May game where, hey, it's a 3-1 count. I'm going to see if you chase. I don't really care if we put a runner on first. In the playoffs, it's a rally. So my guy on that team, and I do think he got banged up recently, so I don't think he counts. I've always thought Ryan Mountcastle is suited for an October. I think he can really hit. He is one of those guys with similar batting average on base. Like, he's not an on-base guy. But I think those guys, when postseason is here, there's a difference between being a Javi Baez and you just swing, and there's a difference between being a regular season guy that's not chasing walks. No shots fired at my guys like Mike Ford or Aaron Hicks, who's been ripping it up for these Orioles. There are guys that chase walks. Like, that's become a big part of the game. And I think in October, there is a little bit of risk because if an Eddie Rosario's in a cold streak, now you've got a guy that's chasing balls out of the zone and you're looking at a 1-for-15 series. But you risk that for any player. So I'd rather bet on a guy that I know can hit, I know can attack balls in the strike zone. And Mountcastle, if he's healthy for Baltimore, I think that's a guy that can potentially sneak out a DS or CS MVP because he drives in runs. The other thing that would be interesting, his splits are bigger than I expected this year. He's killing lefties and not righties. So that also leaves myself a little susceptible because if Ryan Mountcastle runs into the wrong amount of righties, that leans into a lot more of Ryan O'Hearn. But that will be a recurring theme for me. Guys that I truly think can hit and maybe get overshadowed by some of the walk pure OPS generation.
I mean, it could definitely be argued that some of those like guys who are heavier on the walks are basically like kind of as you implied are like running up the score against like crappy relievers that they're not going to see in a playoff scenario, and yeah, there's definitely something to be said about, hey, it's October baseball, it's a small sample, see ball, hit ball, just go do it.
Again, a lot of Yankee fans are think I'm doing this for different reasons. It's one of the stats that's blown my mind the most, and it's something that I should probably research a little more, or I'll just trick you and Jolly to do something. Bases loaded stats. It's a small sample for every hitter, right? Like, how many times are you actually getting a bases loaded at bat? Aaron Hicks has some of the worst numbers I've ever seen a player have with the bases loaded. And I think a chunk of that is pursuing the walk constantly. That when you're in a position where the pitcher is going to come at you, that's kind of when you find out. I gave that speech on Talkin Baseball, and Trev brought up his bases loaded numbers, and they were kind of ass. So that was a tough moment because he kind of agreed with me, and then he looked at his stats. So,
but he was kind of a counterexample as well.
Yeah, he was like, oh, yeah, you might be right. So with that, I got my main spiel out of the way. Where are you going next, Foolish? I think the next team you had listed was the Chicago Cubs. Who are they? A playoff team? We're back in 5.
Yeah, I think I want to go mix up the order a little bit.
Please.
And maybe go based on playoff likelihood. So we'll get maybe do Cubs last or something like that.
Okay.
I guess my next up by playoff likelihood is going to be like Phillies or Twins. I'll go Phillies.
Okay.
Phillies, it seems like, are getting a wild card spot. I don't think that's a hot
Phillies
take at this point in the season.
Phillies are in.
They got it. So thing with the Phillies is, and you've heard it a million times, what's the rub with them? It's the defense. And that's something that's been improving to some degree with Harper being able to play some first base, which frees up DH for Schwarber, who is a butcher out there in left field. Can I sidebar a little bit? Like,
please.
People are talking about this Kyle Schwarber season where he's got the 800 OPS and all the home runs or whatever. And they're like, I can't believe his WAR is that low, as if it's like a knock on wins above replacement. But I think what they're forgetting is, like, where's the eye test on his defense? Because if you've seen him play defense, you would understand, like, so it's not even like if you're just, if you're trying to go after the metrics, you need to keep the eye test in mind. It works both ways. But anyways, with that being said, they've got a defensive wizard rookie in Jhoan Rojas right now. He's 23 years old. He's got a +6 outs above average in the outfield in just 53 games, playing primarily center. Brandon Marsh is also a very solid center fielder. He's been playing more left in lieu of Rojas and with Schwarber at DH. But this is a genre pick for me because I'm also going to throw in Christian Pache as well as the other sleeper. Because for me, even though Rojas has hit well on the surface, like he has a 299 average, is a 110 WRC plus, just kind of looking at his underlying data, I don't really think it holds up. But the thing is, even if you're not going to hit, there's still opportunities to make the big play in the playoffs. Think about the Chas McCormick catch last year, in the Phillies home ballpark, and Rojas also 13 of 14 on steal attempts this year. So maybe he steals the big bag. There's really 2 ways to break out in the postseason. You can have the big postseason all year long, like Randy Rosarena, or you can just have the moment, like, Brett Phillips. And so maybe Rojas is sort of the latter. But on the other side of things, Christian Pache, also known for his glove, famously given like an 80 grade in the field when he was a prospect. In a very small sample of 75 plate appearances this year, he's hit well. He has a 254 average, 324 on base, 478 slug. And where he's really hitting well is against the lefties, which is, if you see him in there, that's going to be, in for Marsh or in for Rojas, who are, where he's going to be used as a situational, like, versus left-handed pitching type of guy. So my sort of genre is, Phillies defense first outfielders. I think they've got a potential to make a big impact this fall.
I like it. Rojas, I was a little late on him. There was an episode of Talkin Baseball where Trev gave his award to Rojas, and I wasn't very familiar with him. But his defense, I'm a sucker for center field defense. And his stats, it's crazy that he is currently, him or Pache or whoever else they throw in, that's your 9 hitter for the Phillies. I mean, I just had a moment, like, the Phillies have been off the radar a little bit because they haven't been near the Braves. They haven't been near the true, like, wild card mess. And we've had a ho-hum like, yeah, the Phillies are talented and maybe they'll do it again this postseason. maybe they'll do it again this postseason. The lineup's disgusting. That I like the factor of whichever one of them ends up in the 9 hole. And God, another thing where Jimmy's probably right. Flashbacks to Rob Thompson not changing their lineup last year when people were asking them to shuffle. Nick Castellanos, who's on a heater right now, is hitting 6th or 7th for them every day. Like, most managers would love to press the button and be like, ooh, well, let's slide him up. He's hot. Rob Thompson's like, hey, you're good down there? Let's run it. And if I'm looking at the lineup and I'm Rojas or Pache, and I see ahead of me is Marsh, Castellanos, Real Muto, and this is before I get to the top 5 of the lineup, I feel like I'm playing with house money. I'm going to catch every ball. I'm going to make the throws. And when I come up to the plate, let's, the fuck around and find out chart. Like, I don't know. If I want to swing for the fence, I'll do that. If I want to move the runner, I'll do, like, I can do whatever I want. And it almost doesn't matter that I like that angle.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what both of them can do. And I do think there is something to be said about, there's not much pressure on these guys offensively. They're expected to contribute in other ways. So any hitting they do is really just has been a bonus this year.
Okay, Bailey. I think I'm going to hit you with a daily double. Of the teams you assigned me, 2 of those teams were the Dodgers, who I think a lot of people are familiar with a lot of their players. So to pick I'm going Freddie Freeman. People know the Dodgers. You've seen Betts, Freeman, Smith, Muncy, hell, even JD Martinez. If you're a baseball fan, you're very well versed with him at this point. You could keep going to Peralta, Hayward, Ahmed Rosario, Chris Taylor, Kike. It's a sick thing they've got going on. But them and the Brewers both have a player that if you're in baseball, you're familiar with. They're both rookies. They're both center fielders. One came on the scene hot, and then he cooled off a little bit. And then it turns on he's been back. And getting into the stats, I was surprised to see that, or surprised to see what level he's been at. And then the Brewers, it's a guy who's become a key cog of their team, and they've needed him. I'm going Sal Frelick for Milwaukee, and I'm going James Outman for the Dodgers. Both rookies, and obviously different scenarios. Outman, a lot of people are going to be looking at Freddie and Mookie and Will Smith and Muncy. Those guys have done it for the past half a decade. A lot of the Dodgers' success this postseason will probably come down to them. James Outman has played center field all year for the Los Angeles Dodgers, the second best team in the National League, in the month of July. So he had an awesome April, 991 OPS, right? He's killing it, beating the world. He was on our all-JM team. He had the best month of any center fielder. Then he fell off. He has a couple tough months, and that's fine. He comes back July and August, OPS in the 9s, OPS in the 8s. He slowed down a little bit this month, but the splits aren't bad. My computer just froze up, which is hilarious as I'm trying to dig up his numbers. I guess in my head, after the first month, he is a lot better versus righties. I take that back. He's an 820 OPS versus righties, but I want that to sink in a little bit. Like a center fielder with an 820 OPS, like that doesn't just happen. That doesn't grow on trees. And this is for a team that has a very good shot of going to the World Series, or basically there's one other big bad team that's seemingly in their way. And Frelick, man, I mean, he's like the cleanup hitter. He goes and he hunts down balls in the outfield. That he's a guy that with his skill set, he could have a 2 for 12 series, but still impact it in multiple ways that, I don't know. I think both of those guys if you're a fan of those teams, you're obsessed with them. They're your talented young player that you're excited to watch for the next 6 years. But I think around baseball, if you watch your team, you think Dodgers, you jump to the guys I just mentioned. You jump Brewers, you probably think like Yelly. Maybe you get to Adames in the pitching. I think Sal Frelick's that guy, and I think both of them have such an opportunity to announce themselves this October.
Yeah, and the Brewers have kind of been rotating in various young rookie outfielders throughout this season, and Frelick's been the one that's managed to really stick. So great call on him. Outman, the season he's having, if Bellinger had stayed and had the season Outman was having right now, people would be like, oh, this is a great bounce back. Instead, they let Bellinger go, and he's had a great year with the Cubs, but they get James Outman, and they get to pay him nothing, and it's just like a late round draft pick. You said these guys, oh, this doesn't grow on trees, this doesn't just happen. Well, when you're the Dodgers, it does happen.
Yeah.
So great picks. Really, really stoked on both of those guys, and excited what they're gonna bring to the table in October.
Couple Frelick quick hitters. In his time in the big leagues, 31 strikeouts, 27 walks. That's a sign of a guy that's seeing the ball all right. He's got a 372 on base, and the way he plays defense is reckless and fun and awesome. Coming off of you mentioning Phillies defensive outfielders, that he's going to make a nice play this postseason, and that's Brewers baseball, right? And this might be the year that it kind of works. God, they are set up in really good Brewers fashion, and I know both of you know, but if you're talking about breakout stars of this postseason, Abner Uribe for Milwaukee, he is the definition of, whoa, that first time you watched a Giants playoff game and you saw Camilo Doval. We're in the weeds and we see it. There's going to, again, our guy, Joe Hardhat, who tunes into Wake and Jake, they're going to see Abner Uribe and be blown away. The most velo ever by a Brewers pitcher, and he might be pitching in the 6th. The Brewers have their recipe right now.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like we feel this way every year, and it just doesn't quite happen for them. But yeah, it'll be Abner Uribe's a great shout though. He's a guy I remember. I don't know if there's just GIFs from spring training where you're like, okay, this guy is different. But yeah, I actually kind of feel good about the Dodgers this postseason. They're not a sleeper in a sense, but I feel like they just have so much less pressure than they usually do. Why not? Why not just go win it?
It feels like to me, and Dodgers fans let me know because I don't check the lineup every day, but going back to what was it, the full platoon Dodgers? Was that 17 or 18 where they were subbing?
I think we're 17. We're like Logan Forsythe. We're
David Freese. We're benching Belly against lefties. It feels like they have some of that, but it's the second half of the lineup. It's okay.
Yeah.
We're playing a righty. Hayward, Peralta, get couple other guys. All right. We're playing a lefty, Kike, Chris Taylor. It feels like they can mix and match, but not the core. Not where your team's identity should be at the top of your lineup. And half of that is two guys fighting for the MVP. Who's going to win? Is it your guy, Ron?
He's going to win. I think maybe who deserves to win is a longer discussion for a different day.
Sounds like a potential video, Bailey. Click.
Shall we move on? Should we do the Minnesota Twins?
Who are you going to tell me about on the Minnesota Twins when Trevor tells me all about them all day?
Yeah, these are going to be guys you've heard a million times, but maybe Joe Hardhat. We'll learn some new names here.
Give me Matt Wallner. Give me the Minnesota Moose.
This is a genre pick This is final genre pick. I know it's cheating essentially. My pick is Twins bullpen not named Jhoan Duran.
Okay.
Yeah. So here's who they've got. Twins bullpen not named Jhoan Duran. Griffin Jacks, driveline guy.
Air
monster
Force
first
guy,
half.
if I remember correctly.
I think that's right. I think
so.
you've got that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was 93 on his fastball 2 years ago. Now he's 97. Big time sweeper, strong first half, struggled some in the second half, but the underlying data is fine. They've got who I called the old feel good story, Caleb Tealbar. Made his comeback to Major League Baseball in 2020. Currently has an ERA under 2. Another driveline guy, and then rivalry alert, because there's a new feel good story, and he's a tread guy. And it's Brock Stewart, aka Beef Stew, who had an ERA under 1 before hitting the 60-day IL. Don't forget about him. He's rehabbing in AAA. He's had a couple of rehab games under his belt. Seems like he's going to be back for October as well. Emilio Pagan hasn't been terrible for them, even though I think there are times where Twins are like, can we just DFA this guy? He's been all right lately. And then the other thing with them is, and you mentioned it earlier with the Orioles, they're going to get to convert a starting pitcher or two to relief. And just on paper, Kenta Maeda seems like a great fit for that, just because that's a role he's familiar with from his time with the Dodgers. So, when you're in, a shorter series, or you've got rest days, you can really lean on, your top, 4 or 5 relievers. And I kind of like that group for the Twins, because even though if you look at their total overall bullpen stats this year, like their ERA or anything like that, they're just like pretty average, mediocre. I do think there's enough you can get out of those top 4 or 5 guys that they could really surprise people.
It's going to be... So you mentioned the Brewers. It feels like we say the same story every year. I do think they're hitting showing a little more than a lot of Brewer teams before they head into the dance. A little more lineup depth, which I like. Shout out to my guy, Josh Donaldson. For Minnesota, the story is obviously not winning a playoff game, but they're pitching. It's clearly a different team, and it's how much are they going to get out of the offense? And man, Brock Stewart's a throwback for me. He hasn't been on my mind a lot, but there was a time when he was one of the most dominant relievers in the game. I guess in my head, and this is looking at the uniform, it's tough to me thinking about an intimidating Twins bullpen. Because it's normally you start licking your chops, and that's like, it's a little bit rude, but it's just honest, man. Griffin.
Yeah, I also kind of, I feel like I already said this about the Dodgers, but I feel like one of my just like completely irrational baseball takes that I've had for, probably at least the last 5 years, is that if the Twins can just win one playoff game, or they can just win one playoff series, it's going to snowball. But we'll have to see. The jury's still out on that. But congratulations, they're going to win the Central. That's something.
Well, me and BBD stumbled into this today. If the playoffs started today, and we, obviously the West has to sort itself out. But as of right now, today, via tiebreakers and stuff, it would be the Twins hosting the Texas Rangers. So it would be the ultimate test. Like, that Rangers lineup, now they got Young and Adolis back, and Carter's at the bottom of that lineup. So it would be what's arguably been the scariest lineup in baseball when they've been right. Versus the Twins pitching that's, sneakily been one of the best staffs around the league. That, man, it's where those dark thoughts creep in, man. If you're the Twins and you look up at the scoreboard in the 5th inning and it's 6-1 Texas, and you're like, how did we end up here again? Like, a team that was an absolute juggernaut, we're facing them in the first round of the playoffs? I don't know. Obviously, a lot has to be sorted, but God, if you're the Twins, give me Toronto over, I think, all 3 of the West teams.
Oh yeah, I agree with that.
Man. Oh, it's going to be so fun to watch those Twins games. Speaking of fun to watch, I have another guy in my Eddie Rosario bucket. This is a layup for me. Hitting 263 this year with a 313 on base. Oh, pump it into my veins. It's All-Star Lourdes Gurriel Jr. Again,
Ooh.
if you're a baseball person, you know Lourdes. He was in the middle of those Blue Jay lineups. He's now been doing it for the Snakes this year. Kind of came into the All-Star and out of the All-Star limping a little bit, but the numbers on the year are still fine. It's right around who he is career. And I don't have to redo the whole speech, but like, I think Lourdes Gurriel Jr. can hit. And I think when there's that moment, if he has a 2-0 count, he has a 3-1 count, he's not going to take the fastball away and see if Blue calls it a ball or a strike. He's going to put his A swing on it, and I think in the postseason that can change do or die series. So again, pretty simple formula on my end that'll be put to the test this postseason. I do, while I'm just on my Snakes, where are you with Ketel Marte?
Yeah, he's a tough. I feel like he's oscillated so much throughout his career that we've almost reached the point where I think we know what he is and what we're gonna get, which is probably like a 120 or a 115, OPS plus or WRC plus, and then questionable defense, whatever up the middle position he's playing that year. I still really like him. Every time I'm watching a Snakes game and Ketel Marte's hitting, I'm like, okay, something's good's gonna happen here. But yeah, he's an interesting one for sure. I'd be interested to see what he does this October if they make it.
Yeah, it's so ridiculous that if Ketel Marte was in the New York market, we would speak about him like we do Gleyber Torres. I mean, easily. Similar stats, but this is a guy that has moved around short, second, and center field on different years, like switch hitter. I don't know. I excluded him from this list because I think, Ketel's done it for a minute. He's got 24 career WAR. Like he's not. It's not like
he had like a top 3 MVP finish.
Yeah, it's
MVP
not like
4 and 19.
It's not like, wow, what would you look at this Ketel Marte? It's like, no, he's got a 130 OPS plus this year. He's leading the league in triples. Go Snakes! And you're leading the league in triples. A Diamondbacks playoff game, triples. Archie Bradley. Triples are best. I got my Snakes bid in. Where to next, Bailey? Because I've seen your Twins bullpen, I've seen your Phillies, I've seen your Orioles. Is it Cubs season, or is there someone else off the board that I should be looking for?
I'm gonna go Astros. Astros. It's a little bit chalky given the theme of the draft. You kind of alluded to it with your Dodgers. Like people know these guys; they're in the playoffs every year.
This is you sent me the Braves, and I was like, I don't know, man. Like I think we got it.
Yeah, I think we know who they are at this point. Astros, it's Yainer Diaz. He can hit. Like he can hit. He honestly, he probably fits your criteria beautifully as far as like that higher average, low OBP, see ball, hit ball guy. Here's a good number, couple good numbers for Yainer Diaz, specifically his offense. I think I got 7 hitters this year with a strikeout rate under 20% and a barrel percentage over 12. It's Acuna, Betts, Seager, Soto, Alvarez, Devers, Yainer Diaz.
Give me the requirements again.
Under 20 strikeout percent, and then over 12 barrel percent.
Yeah.
That's pretty simple. I mean, you don't strike out, you barrel the ball up,
It's a good list.
I got another one for you. These are, I think, minimum 300 plate appearances. Since integration, top 3 rookie catchers by slugging. uh, Number 1, Mike Piazza, 561.
Sure.
Number 2, Yainer Diaz, 553. Number 3, Carlton Fisk, 538. So he's right between rookie Fisk and rookie Piazza in terms of his slugging. And, I don't think, I mean, he's gotten a lot of love, but I don't think we've quite appreciated what he's doing enough given the position. And maybe, Dusty Baker didn't either because he's been kind of eased into this role throughout the year. He could have played more earlier. I would still give AL Rookie of the Year to, Gunnar Henderson. But Yainer Diaz would probably be my runner-up at this point in the season, just the way he's taken over. And who's to say it doesn't continue? And he's just, he's the 2023 version of what Jeremy Pena did last year. So Yainer Diaz, my pick for the Astros.
Man, Dusty. Well, Houston fans, you know your team better than me. But if Dusty puts Maldonado's name in the lineup over Diaz, I don't know. But I know.
I mean, I bet Maldonado in like a 7-gamer gets at least one game,
Sure, and I wonder, like, there's a lot of different ways you could play it, right? Like, say they just straight up love Maldonado, which they clearly do. And he's like runs that team in a way. Like, do you start Maldonado and let's say it's the second inning and there's runners on first and second, one out. Like, do you just play the Yainer Diaz card there and be like, all right, like, hey, we put our, like, I don't know. Like, in my head, that should be on the table. But I don't know how Dusty's thinking about it. And something that I ran into, first it was their bullpen. There was a point in this season where the Astros bullpen was like the Astros bullpen. It was all the names we knew. It was all the names you've seen. There wasn't one name in the bullpen that hadn't pitched for them in like previous playoff innings. And I was like, what? How did we get here? I'll read the names quickly. If Dusty wanted to do their all-in lineup, Altuve, Bregman, Alvarez, Tucker, Abreu, Brantley, Pena, McCormick, who's got an 835 OPS this year, and then you could put Yainer Diaz, who you just said is having a historical power-hitting catching season. Kind of like I said with the Phillies. There's a chance we could be like, wow, these Phillies are really built for it, and they're mashing again. Houston could waltz their way to the World Series.
Yeah.
God, man. And like you said with the Dodgers, we should be shocked that there's a catcher that's doing the same things Piazza and Fisk did. But with Houston, are we really? No. The Dodgers found James Outman. Here's Yainer Diaz. Great. God. They're so good.
Yeah, they are. I'd have to check like Yainer Diaz, like his background a little bit, but I know with regards to like the Dodgers, or not the Dodgers, the Astros pitching, their whole like they built up those guys like Javier and Framber Valdez and Luis Garcia because they would sign them when they were like 17, and everyone, because it's like a stupid thing where they think, you draft a high schooler in the United States when they're 17 and you're like, great, that's as young as it gets. And then in the Dominican, if you're 17 or 18 and then not in affiliated ball, you're like seen as washed. And they basically cracked that code, God.
They've cracked every code, man. It's I'm happy for them, but it just makes it really tough on the whole American League. They take up one of the 2 ALCS spots the past 6 years.
It's crazy.
It's absurd. It's like that's supposed to defy analytics in MLB postseasons, right? Like it's not supposed to be like that, but somehow it is.
And they've completely remade the team. I mean, it's just it's just Altuve and Bregman from 17, really. I mean, Tucker was like a pup then,
Yeah.
so it's just like it just keeps going and going.
They've let Springer walk. They've let Correa, like, people like forget Springer was even an Astro at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't want to say genuinely, because I don't want that to be like a shot at his career, but I don't know if you're newish to baseball, George Springer, the Toronto Blue Jay, and there's a lot of teams that when you're in that position of fight or flight with a young star player that's also led you to success, like he used to be the head of the snake. He was their leadoff guy. He was like the set the tone center fielder, and they let him walk, and then the star shortstop. And now here's a young star catcher. God, they're a cut above, man. They really are. Let's see. Is there anyone else that I really wanted? I just mentioned Junior Caminero gets called up. Currently listed as the Rays DH, by the way. Great. Yeah, I think I'm too close to the situation with the Rays, because I could easily give speeches about Josh Lowe, Isaac Paredes. For me, I see them and know them. That I don't know. None of them felt like breakout postseasons. Here's a guy you're gonna find out about. And they're just the Rays, dude. They just put themselves in the right situation. That, God, I remember Josh Lowe was having putting up historic rookie numbers, and they still refused to play him against lefties because they're like, well, we don't need to. Go out there, Manny Margot. Do your thing.
Right.
God, that franchise. Is there anyone else you want to hit, Bailey?
I'll hit Cubs real quick. They don't have, it's kind of 50-50 whether they'll be in the playoffs or not. I'm definitely rooting for them to get there. But if the Cubs make it, my guy Seiya Suzuki.
Okay.
Seiya Suzuki, always liked him. First year and a half or so in the big leagues was a perfectly fine player. Had some injuries. Wasn't great. He was maybe good, but not great. But the data and as well as my gut feeling has always kind of said he has another level to his game, and he's kind of hit it lately. 347 average, 401 on base, 693 slugging since August 1st, 11 homers in 41 games. Best hitter by WRC plus in that stretch behind only Betts and J-Rod. And right at the start of that streak, he got benched, and so this is sort of the narrative. Ross gave him a day off, said he still got some things to figure out. And this is, similar to Grayson Rodriguez almost getting sent down to AAA. Great underlying data on his offense, makes contact in the zone, doesn't chase out of the zone, hits the ball hard at optimal launch angles. And, final little bit of just playing the narrative game. He does have playoff experience, but he hasn't won it all. He lost the Japan series in both 2016 and 2018 with the Hiroshima Carp. And in 2018, I didn't know they have this, but we should bring this to the World Series for sure. In Japan, they have the Fighting Spirit Award winner, which is the MVP of the losing team. And he won that in 2018 in the Japan series. So my guy, I don't know if Cubs will make it. I'm rooting for him. But if they get in, watch out for Seiya Suzuki.
Not to derail us, but God, different countries' cultures are so funny. If MLB had that award, my guy Jimmy would rip it apart. Fight on the losing team? Who cares? That's not what we're doing. But there, it's probably noble and nice. Damn, dude.
Yeah, it's definitely honorable,
You played great and you fought and you deserve to be respected for that. Here you go. And over here, we're oh, soft.
like a participation trophy, basically.
Great, dude. Nice. Best loser. Yeah, for the Cubs, for me, I just like Morel way too much. I couldn't bring a stat really to the table that would buy people over. Just I think energy is infectious, and like the way that guy, even what's his name, Canario came up and hit was it a grand slam for his first home run?
It was a slam.
Morel's reaction to that, and I don't know if this is a Cubs thing. Morel watched him hit the home run, gives the generic, player, 2 arms up, excited for my guy. And then he ripped his jersey off, his own jersey. I don't know what that was. Every time I see Christopher Morel, I love what's happening. I mean, I must very clearly miss when he has his 1 for 14s, and that's obvious. But it seems like every time I see him, he's pimping a home run or he's doing something just awesome energy-wise that, I don't know. He's like my video game player. Like if I'm 11 and I'm setting up my creative player, he's Christopher Morel. Okay, I guess I did get a little emotional there.
We might get a little emotional here right quick too.
Yeah, I think speaking of foolish, and this is I do love a real conversation, and not a lot of people associate that with me. They associate the little kooky guy. I asked you beforehand, I was like, foolish. I didn't know any direction you could take it, whether you wanted to talk about your Falcons, whether you wanted to talk about a new video. But there was something you wanted to bring up, so please.
Yeah, so, I don't talk too much about my personal life, especially not family life, but I am going to make an exception today to quickly eulogize my grandfather. He passed away last Tuesday. It was not unexpected, totally unexpected. His health had been in decline last couple of years. His first act professionally was in the insurance industry, but I only knew him after his second act, which is he went to seminary and became a minister. And so to so many people throughout North Georgia, he was reverend or pastor, and to me, he was Pop. And it was. I'm 28. It's really been a blessing for me to get to know my grandparents as an adult and to see them, as adults. And so it was just great to have him around for so long in my life. I definitely inherited his sense of humor. So if you enjoy my content, sorry about my sense of humor. I apologize. One thing I did not inherit from him was his athleticism. My pop was an incredible athlete. When he and also incredibly competitive. He famously broke both of his thumbs sliding headfirst into second base in church softball. And he was in his 50s playing with guys in his 20s. He loved ball. He loved the Braves, and he loved the Yankees too. He spent a lot of his childhood in New York City, so the Yankees were sort of his first baseball love before the Braves even moved to Atlanta. Loved Mantle, loved Berra. Would tell me stories about flipping cards to, with his buddies. And because of that, he was also really proud of what I do. And, I think we've all kind of been through this universal experience of explaining what we do to older relatives and hoping they get maybe 50% of it. He was always really interested in what I was up to. The last, or maybe probably second to last time I saw him, he was just grilling me on the rule changes this year. Everything pitch clock and step offs. That's who he was. So I'm gonna miss him dearly, but I was also very lucky to have him for as long as I did, and I'm glad he saw me at least become somebody in terms of the baseball world, because he really did love ball.
Sounds like Pop knew ball. Sounds like he was a common ball knower, man. That's I'm sorry for you. I'm happy that you got to know him and have a relationship with him. I only knew one grandparent in my early years, so I was how does a 10-year-old boy communicate with his 80-year-old grandma? The lines don't cross there too well. And that's cool that he was like a figure in the community. And just tying it all together with baseball, like, man, It's there's a family thing to it. Like I remember me and Jimmy, one of our first forms of content we used to did. So my South leaked out there. Jimmy used to invite me over to his basement. He would set up 3 video cameras, a bottle of Jameson, and we would take questions from our friends on Facebook. And we would do a question, we would answer it, and then we'd take a shot. And some days we'd do 8 shots, some days we did like 13. So basically, we ended up posting a video of us blacking out on Facebook. I think all those videos are off the internet to come out another day for the documentary. But horrified our parents, blah, blah, blah. But I remember one time, one of our friends wrote in the question. You're probably wondering how this relates to your pop. One of our
I'm sure.
One of our friends wrote in the question, like, how did you become Yankees fans? And we're like, ooh, I guess that's an interesting question. And you dig back into your memory, and I was like, well, I guess my dad was a Yankees fan, so I just kind of inherited it. Obviously, there's some 90s Yank stuff going on there, too, that probably didn't hurt. And then I forget if we called our friends live, but we called our friend Ed, who's a Mets fan. Like, Ed, Mets fan. Like, how'd you become a Mets fan? His dad was a Mets fan. All right. And Nick, 2 Nicks. You guys both like Boston. Like, yeah, dads are Boston fans. So there's something to families in baseball that it's just like it's a part of the gig, man. And we've got a company now with a bunch of people, and I think they would tell the exact same story.
Yeah, totally. And I understand there are people who probably find baseball, through you all because they didn't have that family influence as much, which is great too. But yeah, for so many of us, it is a generational thing.
Yeah, and there's just something, football has Sunday, and that's its own beast, really, and they're so good at that. Baseball has a weird thing where it's just like, it's on. Like, if you're in one of those families, like, it's on for 6 months. Like, sometimes you're watching it, sometimes you're not. And it's pretty cool that Pop sliding into second, both thumbs.
Yeah, and he was in his 50s, so he was pretty reckless there.
God, the more and more warehouse stuff we do, I feel like I'm going to end up having a story like that, which equal parts exciting and horrifying.
Yeah.
But appreciate it, Bailey. And I don't know if my smirk showed at the start, which not a time to show a smirk, but I was laughing, and I try not to reference this every time, but I do end up becoming an old man because I'm becoming an old man. When you said I don't share much about my personal life, and the first time
on here,
the first time we had you on Talking Baseball, we basically had you reveal your whole identity. I mean,
well, because I've been kind of wrestling with it for a while, and I was like, there's just no point in hiding anymore, so that was kind of the thing.
I mean, it was just so. It was funny by not being funny. It was like, I don't know, graduating college, I've kind of built this internet thing. Like, I get it. Like, I remember when I made my Twitter handle @Talkin Jake, and I was like, is this going to be like my moniker? Am I, for the next 60 years? Is that how like people are going to remember me? And then do I post other stuff with my last name? There's a bit of a creator's conundrum there, and hey man, if you ever need to share anything, we've got safe places for you.
Yeah, social security numbers, mother's maiden name, all that stuff.
What do you got?
Whatever you got.
My mom's Pogozelski, Polish.
Ooh,
yeah, that's where I get my thick-headedness. Bailey, anything else coming up? We got some videos. Anything special for the postseason or anything?
Not specifically for the postseason, but I am excited to share that I'm working on a little bit of Negro League baseball content, and I'm really stoked about that. dipped my toe in some with the video on Jackie Robinson last year, but I'm ready to dive in head first.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Well,
try not to break your thumbs.
Yeah, be careful on the keyboard there. Bailey, thank you as always. Thank you, man. We've had a lot of fun baseball talks this year. Yeah, we'll probably check in some point in October. And man, I as much as I swooned about the Orioles before, and then if you'll see my face drop mid-episode just thinking about the Astros, I'm picking the Braves, man. They're in a different world.
Yeah, but it just feels too good to be true. Like this can't be the team that wins it all because they're too good.
That's such a Braves fan answer. That's such a Braves fan answer. If they win, there's a chance they get remembered as an all-time great team.
Oh yeah, 2018 Red Sox, even like that team won 108 and they breezed through the playoffs, but on paper, are they as impressive as what the Braves have done this year? And you look at I don't know,
It's the great debate. We'll save that for November. Bailey, thank you, brother. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Jake. Thank you, BBD.
Let's talk some football, and it's brought to you by DraftKings, and they are giving you quite the deal when it comes to baseball. Okay, the playoffs are here, week away. Depending when you're listening to this, there's going to be playoff baseball. Wow, we're going to be streaming $200 in bonus bets for betting $5 on baseball. That's right, $5. Boom. That team to win. $200 in bonus bets. So what are you waiting for? Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code BAKERS. New customers can score $200 instantly in bonus bets for betting $5 on baseball only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code BAKERS. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boo Hill Casino and Resort, licensee partner Golden Nugget Lake Charles, 21 plus. Age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. See dkng.co/baseball for eligibility, terms, and responsible gaming resources. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply. All right. A fun football weekend. It was the football weekend I probably gotten to enjoy the most. Hope you guys enjoyed Foolish. I know you did. Again, trying to rethink and tinker with the football stuff. So I think I'm going to start doing it as 3 things I learned, 1 thing I was wrong about. And so I'll walk you. I like to be poetic about the weekend a little bit. Got to go home. Or excuse me, I didn't go home. I went up to Syracuse, New York. I saw my sister and met my new nephew, Bodie. Did some apple picking, some real Northeast stuff. Drive back Sunday, but I did the first leg of the drive. Me and Jess switched. By the time that's about 12:30, so I get to start watching the football in the car, end up on the couch watching football, and watch it through the night. Placed a lot of bets at DraftKings. Did well. The 3 things I learned this weekend. The first thing I want to hit on, I guess this is kind of more of a clicky hot topic around football. I want to go to my guy Justin Fields. Justin Fields and the Bears played the Chiefs. Everyone watched it, which is really tough for Justin Fields. Even the Swifties came through, which is crazy if that's their debut of Justin Fields. He ends up 11 for 22 for 99 yards passing, 11 carries for 47. He gets 1 touchdown. It's very much at the end of the game. DJ Moore, huge for some fantasy owners. The Bears are bad, and that's fine. And that is what it is. And the Chiefs are really good. They're a dynasty. Like, we kind of, we always do this thing where we're like, is this going to be the last dynasty in sports? Like, we've got all the, with the salary cap and new rules. Is this going to, Golden State just had one. The Chiefs are living one, and it's going to continue as long as they have Mahomes and probably Reed. We'll see how much of a factor that is, but Tom Terrific did move on from Belichick and went to one of football's worst franchises and won a ring. So,
I'd choose having the quarterback.
BBD chooses having the quarterback. And Mahomes is sick, and the game gets out of hand. It's a 27-point second quarter by Kansas City, which, compared to the Dolphins-Broncos situation, which I guess I will touch upon at the end, doesn't seem too bad. But the bigger thing here for me is Justin Fields. And the second quarter, what became sad was that Chicago was getting the ball back, and the game's not over, right? It's the NFL. Like, anything can happen. 3-score games. We saw the Jaguars playoff game last year. Like, I think each week we've seen 17-plus point comebacks. So it's, they're getting the ball back late in the second quarter, and it's like, okay, let's go. Let's drive the ball. Let's move the ball. Let's make something happen. Let's get a point on the board. More importantly, let's keep it out of their hands. And they couldn't do it. They could not do it. They didn't have any plays. When they had to pass the ball, there was nothing there. And maybe we currently don't know how to divvy it up between Justin Fields, the Bears' talent, and the Bears' coaching. Right? We don't know what percentage is what. If Justin Fields played for the Dolphins yesterday, I don't think you would have bet against him, right? Like, good coaching matters in this league. I heard my guy Russillo went on a rant about Brock Purdy and Daniel Jones. Going back to Thursday night game, Ryan Russillo, not a Daniel Jones guy. But he said he was actually impressed by Daniel Jones because they were going up against the Niners with nothing. Nothing. No Saquon, no offensive line against one of the top 3 football teams, like worst case you can argue, for the San Francisco 49ers this year.
Certainly by talent.
And coaching. The coaching thing in the NFL has hit in a new level. Like, if you don't have one of those coaches, you're playing so far behind because you can't score. So with Justin Fields, what I learned is if you still want to be a Justin Fields, it's going to click, it's going to come around, that's fine. But you better be all in on C.J. Stroud. C.J. Stroud for the Texans yesterday. They go in and they beat the Jacksonville Jaguars. This Texans team, talent-wise, nobody believed in anything coming into the season. Like, nobody was into the Texans' talent. Their coaching staff, people are wondering, do they have, I don't want to say a dead duck coaching staff again, but, we're figuring it out. BBD, you got the Texans head coach on the top of your tongue?
DeMeco Ryans.
DeMeco Ryans. First win is special with the Houston Texans.
Nice.
We saw Jonathan Gannon with the Cardinals get his first win yesterday. And it was a little bit of a weird NFL Sunday, if we're being honest. Cowboys going into Arizona. This Jaguars game, where I think we did see the NFL. If you start getting a little too tasty on yourself, it can come back at you pretty quickly. That being said, C.J. Stroud, these are his first 3 games as the Texans quarterback. At Baltimore, tough game, right? They lost 25-9. Everyone likes Baltimore, although they lost a tough one. He was 28 for 44, 242 yards passing, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Okay, for a rookie debut game on the road at Baltimore, don't really know what more you'd be looking for necessarily. The next week, they go and play the Indianapolis Colts, who rookie quarterback of their own, who they got up early. Richardson got knocked out, if you remembered. They were throwing it a ton. 30 for 47. for CJ Stroud for 384. 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Okay, I mean, what did it really mean? It was a losing effort. They were down early. He comes back this week. They roll up on Jacksonville. 37-17 final. And you kind of thought, okay, I think it was 17-0 at the half. Is this going to be the comeback game? The Jags, they got the ball to start, and they had a dominant drive to come out and start the half. And you're like, all right, here we go. Here come the Jags that everybody loves. No. Houston poured it on them. Part of that was a fullback kick return. If you haven't seen that, go watch that. That's one of those, like, how can this happen in today's NFL? It's actually a sick run by the guy.
That's cool.
It was just one of those, he couldn't be tackled. Like, he just could not be tackled. Everyone would just kind of wash off of him. They couldn't get his legs. It was a crazy kick return. He was 20 for 30, 280 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. So, when you start talking rookie quarterbacks, to be 4 touchdowns and 0 interceptions, 3 games through your career, that's pretty good. 0 sacks yesterday after he got beat up the first 2 games. So I don't know if that's on Jacksonville. I don't know if that's on Houston. I don't know if that's on Stroud and them getting better, but that's impressive. The bigger thing for me, his first game ever, 242 yards. 280 this week, 384 last week. Losing effort, 1-2. You have to throw the ball in this league. It's non-negotiable. Like, it's so far past negotiable. 242 yards each game. The past 2 years for Justin Fields, 18 games. He has 242 yards once. It was last year. It was home versus Green Bay, and they did lose. And it was 254 yards. It's not like he was putting up 3 bills or something. So, I realized Justin Fields electric when you see him in the open field, and there was one play early. I think they were down 2 touchdowns, and he had a nice escape, and you're like, okay, like maybe we're going to see that Justin Fields that he had 3 games rushing for 130 plus last year. We haven't seen that yet. And it feels like they heard everything this offseason that, can Justin Fields throw? His Fields' most rushing yards this year is 59. 216 through the air week 1. Is 99 yards last week. And I mean, they were in hell. They were in absolute hell in that second quarter. They couldn't really make a completion to keep the clock running. They had to throw the ball to make it seem like they're a legitimate football team. So, I guess if you want to be a Fields Hive person, you better be in on CJ Stroud. But I don't know. The Fields Hive has gotten a lot more quiet since the season has started. What else I learned this week? I'll go with another team one. I owe the Buffalo Bills an apology. Week 1, they lost at the Jets, which will come back and look like one of the craziest games we ever look back on. The Rodgers-Jets game, 9-11, Rodgers in the flag, done the whole thing.
It's like one of the all-time Week 1 games.
I mean, just chaos. And in what's now an 18-week regular season, there's going to be a point where we look back at that game and say, oh my God, what the hell was that? I was getting on Allen for taking hits. I don't love the Bills coach, McDermott. I'm obviously all about the Dolphins, and again, they showed why this week. The Buffalo Bills are incredible. They rolled at the Commanders 37-3. Do we know who the Commanders are? No. Did I have the Howl Hive in my ear the other week? Because I had a tweet. Imagine what McLaurin would be if he had a quarterback, and they came in and they were like, what'd I do? Well, Sam Howell, 19 for 29, 170 yards and 4 interceptions. Some of the guys that you consider the elite QBs of the league, they never have a game like that. Maybe it's a young blip for Sam Howell. This was in Washington. The 2-0 Commanders. They were my dog I liked. It was a 6.5-point spread. I was like, I don't know. Commanders put a couple drives together, keep it ugly in Washington. Josh Allen's been making a lot of mistakes, right? No. They are a class football team. They've showed it the past 2 weeks. They blew out the Raiders at home. You knew that was happening. They give the Commanders the work. And man, oh man, in Buffalo next week, Bills, Dolphins, we're going to find out something. And does that not feel like, what was that famous Mexico game a few years? Was that Chiefs-Rams?
Ooh.
It was just as back and forth as it got. Like it felt like an NFL lucid dream.
Niners Cardinals.
Niners Cardinals.
9 months ago. This was last year.
I want to say it was 2 years ago. There was a Chiefs Rams Mexico 2018. My goodness. 54-51.
Yeah,
yes.
okay.
Or you know what? I think it was supposed to be played in Mexico City and it got moved. That's right. So they ended up playing at the Memorial Coliseum when the Rams were between. 51-54 final. I don't know. I'm so interested to see what they make the over-under on that game. The Dolphins obviously embarrassed my Broncos at the party in a big way. Bills, Dolphins, two class teams. The other thing, I can save this for another list of 3 things I learned this weekend. There's just tiers in the NFL right now that are just different teams. Like what the Bills and Dolphins can do to you on a given week. Bears, Broncos, like some of those lesser teams they cannot do. Even some of those middle teams, as we find out who the Rams are and like as we find the Buccaneers, like they're not going to do that to you. These teams can. There's some class teams in football. I'm sorry, Buffalo Bills fans. I did have at one of the bachelor parties I went to this year, my buddy was really hyped about a Bills not making the playoff ticket he had. I'm out. I'm out on that. Sorry, Jimmy T. That one's out. My final thing I learned this weekend. I don't know. I do know. Do I want to go at the whole NFC East, or do I make it the Cowboys? I'll bring in the whole NFC East. BBD, the Giants fought like hell and almost took it as a win, losing 30-12 to the Niners. True?
Hey, I mean, it was in range at like half.
I won't say take it as a win, but like Daniel Jones got compliments after the game.
We took a lot more positives from it than negatives.
This is an 18-point loss?
Yeah.
Okay.
Two most impactful non-Daniel Jones players were out. They were there. Sometimes we can get excited.
Commanders. 37-3 to the Buffalo Bills. Okay. How about them Cowboys? Hey, man. I think they got NFL'd a little bit. I started drinking the Cowboys hype train. I was all about it. I think what I've molded, I don't think the Cowboys, I'm not totally flipping. I didn't realize, I guess I do, how many people hate the Cowboys. Like, I don't hate the Cowboys. Like, I guess when I grew up in my sports life, the Cowboys were the Cowboys, and I caught, like, the end of it. Or I caught, Aikman, Smith, Irvin. They won. Kind of cool. And then, more or less, the Cowboys have been, I don't want to say irrelevant, but have they been back to a Super Bowl since those teams? No,
I
right?
believe like the talking point is they haven't even made an NFC championship game yet.
The Cowboys have been more or less irrelevant. Like to have anger for them, I don't really get it. Like I guess maybe I'm too close to sports in the situation. Like the fact that Dak gets a ton of commercials and stuff, like awesome, dude. Good for you. The Cowboys lost at the Cardinals. And just like it felt like a poor effort. It felt like a team that was kind of asleep at the wheel. And then the Cardinals, again, you're at halftime and you're like, okay, let's see the Cowboys do this. Let's see them score the touchdown and then get the stop and get the turnover. And it's the NFL, right? Here we go. No. The Cardinals press it on him. James Conner almost runs for 100. Josh Dobbs is at quarterback for them. Josh Dobbs, drafted in 2017. They love telling the story on the broadcast. 4th-round pick out of Tennessee. He was going to be like a science engineer. Kind of don't care. Watching football. Like, it's cool he's smart. Like, I'm happy for him. But, like, how many...
That is cool. It's been 3 weeks, and I've heard the story...
Every time.
A lot.
And there's something to using that as your throwaway story. Like, Josh Dobbs makes a heads-up play, and you say, yeah, that's right. He was a rocket scientist. Boom. I get that. That's broadcasting. Each time it felt like they've done like a movie, like a pictures fest on him being smart. And it's like, what?
And I know the Cardinals are like supposed to be terrible, and you think you're gonna run out of stuff to say. They've played all close games so far. I forget what happened with them week 1. I know they lost. Also, just the art of every player. His is the worst ever. I know that's just what he looks like.
Yeah. And there was some kind of...
It catches my eye every time.
Some kind of super rude memes about it. Everyone, all the Cowboy haters were doing their you just lost to this guy. It's like, that's kind of rude. They were factoring in his looks to their memes. And I didn't like that. So I'll just lump in the whole NFC. Outside of the Eagles, obviously, I think on both fronts, I think they're going to embarrass the Bucs at the party tonight. But Commanders, they went 2-0, hosting the Bills. This is a chance to really announce yourself. Rocked, 37-3. Giants are taking moral victory points from an 18-point loss at San Francisco. Tough. Dallas kind of gets rolled up on by the Cardinals, who are and should be one of the worst teams in the league. And it felt like they even got some efforts by different guys. Tony Pollard ends up running for 122. Their backup running back. Give me some of that guy. Rico Dowdle. Sure. He had a screen pass that he shook 8 guys to get out of. I don't know. Their defense that we were quick to anoint. I mean, weren't people talking Micah Parsons MVP last week? Are you still saying that? And maybe it's the whole defense. They lost Diggs. How important was that? And maybe that was a chunk of it. But Cowboys, I was ready to put them in the elite. But when I think of the real elite NFL teams, can you put the Cowboys above the Bills? No. Can you put the Cowboys above the Chiefs? No way. Can you put the Cowboys above the Eagles? No. I think there's the tiers in the NFL are as strong as ever. I'd love to hear your Cowboys over Dolphins argument right now. Cowboys can be good. I think the Cowboys still will be good. I think the NFL does this, right? This isn't shots fired at the Cowboys, but let's see how they respond from it. But the NFC East, I know that's not breaking news, but I was ready to dip my toe. I was ready to dip my toe a little further with the Cowboys and potentially a sneaky Commanders team. No.
Well, we got a year of NFC Beast, and technically, 3 of them started off 2-0 this year.
Started.
And then they had the worst kind of losses they can have.
Yeah, and I just think there's...
For narratives.
With NFL, with an extra week in the regular season, with teams taking preseason less seriously, with the tiers that I keep referencing in the NFL mattering more, your results against 2 teams... Know how in fantasy football, when you have your player matchup, it shows where they're playing and it gives a ranking of the matchup? And it'll be Kyle Pitts at the Lions, number 1 green matchup. And that's because the Lions have played 2 weeks of football, where they've given up points to the tight end. So after 2 weeks, what does that mean? What tight ends did they play? Did the Lions care? Were they missing anyone? Like those, you need those numbers through like half a season. Right now, the Eagles are playing the Bucks tonight. In the matchup, I think the Bucks are rated 31st. So it says it's an awful matchup for the Eagles defense going up against the Buccaneers. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the Bucks have it figured out. Maybe Baker goes sicko mode tonight. Maybe they, at home, they beat down on the Eagles. I think the Eagles D and the Buccaneers may shift those numbers after tonight. The one thing that I'll admit I'm wrong on this week, and there's a couple options. I think there'll be a couple options going along the way, obviously, every week.
I mean, technically, one of your things was a thing you're wrong about.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah, something I learned, something I was just wrong about. And that's why I went with something, this is actually kind of basic, but it was... I'm going to start being more open with my Jakey scouting takes because they're just opinions. I came into the year with some hope for Najee Harris. Like I kind of liked him. I thought part of the reason he had struggled in some of the advanced numbers and things to this point in his career was because of the Steelers' offense around him. Like there were some games, young Pickett or other games where they didn't have a quarterback that like, okay, basically, they didn't have wideouts for a little bit. That I think if you were game planning against the Pittsburgh Steelers, it was kind of like, all right, let's contain, don't let Najee Harris beat us, and we're going to have a chance. The difference between Jaylen Warren and Najee Harris last night was like watching two different sports. Najee Harris, I know he's listed like 240. His best run last night was kind of the joke I made. I was texting the Talkin Football, Talkin Giants guys. Maybe he's a speed back in a big back's body. He had a nice run where he kind of had a spin move and kind of twinkle toes through the line and got his momentum going. Everything else was the same thing. He just doesn't get his momentum going. He doesn't really shed the first tackle. And I think the advanced stat that popped up is like he has the least expected yards under expected. Like he's basically it's saying
he's doing the least
basically
with
it's
what he's given.
Basically it said he's like left 163 yards out there compared to I think like your average running back, not like your elite running back. I thought there might be some funny power back stuff there. I'm out. Jaylen Warren, and maybe I was getting too into my 5'8" king. He was so much more electric with the ball in his hands. And if you were watching the late night game last night, he picked up a Max Crosby cross that would have given him a free shot at Pickett. And I think that did lead to one of the Steelers' deep balls. Najee Harris, a guy that I kind of coming into the season, I was like, yeah, you might see him put up a big year. Like that Steelers offense might be clicking. I was wrong on that one. My final just NFL sweep before we clean it up and head you guys into the week. My Broncos are just a straight embarrassment. The Dolphins are sick, and they've already won me over. I told you I'm in as long as Tua's healthy. I think McDaniels is the man. Like, I think there's just a tier of NFL coaches right now. Shanahan, McDaniels. I think McVay probably still counts. We've come a little bit from him, and I don't think he has the same amount of talent as those two guys. We could do a coaches tiers at some point. Look at some of the plays they're drawing up. Chiefs, Andy Reid, like he deserves to be in that class as well.
Oh, yeah.
Also has Mahomes, which helps, but some of the fun stuff they draw up, and like the Dolphins and Niners, I think they're the number one motion team. It's like, fellas, there's something there with the motion that gives you an extra read on the defense or gives your wide receivers a running start. That there's something there. It's clearly working. These teams are doing that. I would look into it around the league if you're not. They put up 70 on my Broncos, 14 points. These are the points by quarter. 14, 21, 14, 21. Just a constant ebb and flow of getting destroyed by their offense. All the fun facts coming out after the game. that the Broncos didn't give McDaniels a chance to interview for the head coaching job. They just declined that. Great. The Broncos sneaky. If you've listened to this show, you know I'm an ownership team. Broncos have gone under new ownership ever since then. They have been pretty bad. Do whatever you want with that. And then I got furious at one point. Where was there? There was an onside kick around the league this weekend. A sneaky onside kick. I forget where it was. I don't think it worked, but it was close. And what did the broadcast say? The broadcast goes, ooh, shades of Sean Payton from the Super Bowl. I almost went into like shock and shaking because I didn't put this together and maybe you guys did, and I'm sorry. That makes Sean Payton opening up his regime as Broncos coach that much worse. You already knew it was my least favorite thing just because of the circumstance. New regime. Playing the Raiders at home. Like, in football, that's kind of viewed as chicken shit. Know where I saw it? College football. It was the college football game. I was watching Arizona State trying to take down USC late night Saturday. Arizona State was busting out all the stops. It was such electric college football. There was one play, the running back had 3 pass attempts. Awesome. Arizona State was busting it all out. So they go onside kick, and they go, shades of Sean Payton in the Super Bowl. I go, wait. So Sean Payton, who probably when he walks around town, everyone's like, Sean Payton, that onside kick in the Super Bowl, man, you got some real stones. And he parlayed that, and he said, you know how I'm going to start my era as Broncos head coach? Onside kick. I'm Sean Payton. Onside kick. 70-20. 70-20. Just crazy embarrassing. Crazy embarrassing. And I've been telling you guys every week, like, the Broncos are, like, straight up losing me as a franchise. Like, people check in with me. They're like, oh, you gonna watch the Broncos game this weekend? Like, to set aside time to watch a Broncos game the past 6-7 years has been an awful idea. Garrett Bowles, who's been their starting tackle for, I think, 6 or 7 years, he came out after the game and he says, all I've done with this team is lose. That sucks, man. Joke. Speed finish. Browns blowout win. They're 2-1. I don't know what to do. Deshaun actually looked good. Lions, kind of blowout win, 2-1. Packers with a fugly comeback against the Saints. Chargers, Vikings was everything I told you it would be. People are forgetting the game-winning Chargers pass went off the Vikings' defensive backhand, and that's what let the Chargers win. Crazy. The 4th down play to go for it. I hate it. And if you don't hate it, you have to hate the play call, which means you should just hate the whole situation. Staley's tough. Both of these teams tried to lose. And Kirk accidentally loses at the end, which was kind of unfortunate for them. Jets are a joke. That's not news.
It's kind of
It's not news.
Kind of the one that stuck out to me is like, oh, all right, kind of what everybody said about the Jets was right. Not that I wasn't on board with the talking points, but like, man. Zach Wilson's not good.
There's something about franchise identity that matters more than we do think about. And, whether it's the Cowboys blowing that game to the Cardinals, whether it's the Steelers just beating the Raiders and, not making mistakes to win games and having a good defense. If I told you, the Bears are bad, the Jets are bad, Chargers and Vikings are going to play an ugly game where they both kind of try to lose.
Both score a bunch.
So, yeah. So, I don't know. I enjoyed the NFL weekend. I do think it was because this is the one I was able to appreciate the most so far. There was a lot of weird and wonky stuff. Not a lot of incredible games. Not a lot of, back-and-forth shootouts. It was really just Chargers-Vikes, which kind of laid out for you guys going into the week. So, that's my football around the horn.
The only thing really left to do is update the people real quick on Against the Spread. You and Bobby have advanced to 3-0. Congrats.
Yeah.
With your Miami and Buffalo picks, respectively. Trevor's 2-1 after picking Detroit to cover 3.5. Pennick loses with his Titans pick. They get blown out. And Canobio can get his first win of the season tonight if the Rams cover 2 points.
Dan can. Dolphins -6, got that one. Knew both teams. Was very up on the Dolphins, was very down on the Broncos. Could not believe in Miami it was 6-point spread. I guess throwaway notes as I finish. NFL, I know it's a slippery slope, and they were so pissy when you could challenge pass interferences. Remember when they were like, yeah, you could challenge pass interference. We're not going to turn over any calls. You can challenge it. It's going to be a waste. Colts-Ravens game. Ravens had in OT, Ravens had a third down pass where the guy just got slaughtered. Maybe it was even fourth down. The guy just got slaughtered before the ball got there. No penalty. And when they gave the ball back, it was just like, okay, so now we're going to lose the game. They might need some sort of better challenge system because plays like that decide games. And, like, kudos to the Colts for getting a win and Minshew on that. But it literally felt wrong. Like, I was in one of my group chats is guys who, it's like a gambling chat basically where they're just trying to get their win. And, for a second, like, gambling was put aside and it was like, what is that? That's like not sports. One other thing, I think I may have forgotten it. Sure have. We'll talk to you on Wednesday. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Goodbye.